Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. I am Jer and this is your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. Joining me to get into all of these things is
Fletcher Sharp.
Good to talk to you, sir.
Likewise.
All right, we're going to have two main topics today, and I think everyone knows what they're going to be since we often talk sports or sports-related things. It's going to be Michigan, and it's going to be the Lions. And I'm all for it. Send it in, dailydetroit@gmail.com for some other things you want to talk about. I know we're going to talk about the Wings and some other things, but let's be honest. The national conversation, the entire sports top-line conversation right now is about the University of Michigan football program, and not necessarily on the field because, they kind of handily took care of the Nittany Lions over the weekend. That wasn't even much of a game, and that's generally the case in the Big Ten with Michigan. But it's all around this Harbaugh scandal, where it sits, all that other stuff. To bring people up to date, there was an action filed by the Big Ten against the University of Michigan, which resulted in Harbaugh being suspended from being on the sidelines or coaching of game day. The last 3 games of the year, the first game of that suspension was on Saturday. The University of Michigan filed an injunction. Then the Big Ten took the extraordinary step, and I say extraordinary because it's not usual, of hiring a local lawyer in Washtenaw County Court to handle their side. So Friday, there will be a hearing about a restraining order to try to injunct and stop the suspension for University of Michigan served out by Jim Harbaugh. It has created a firestorm of reactions. And I'll be honest, we were talking about this off air, Fletcher. If this wasn't Michigan, nobody would care because there's already been scandals this year in the Big Ten galore, whether it's Northwestern, Michigan. If it wasn't Michigan, I don't think anybody would care.
Quickly to just touch on the sports topic before we get into this. Do you know a little respect you have to have for your opponent to run the ball for an entire half in modern football? Michigan football against Penn State did not attempt a pass in the entire second half. The game wasn't totally out of reach either. Do you know a little respect you have to say, we're not throwing the ball ever again. We're just going to run the ball down. We'll happily punt, get the ball back and run it down your throat. That's some Pop Warner, Pee Wee level football type stuff. And these are the best athletes in the region. To this point, I feel for that lawyer who is handling the Big Ten. He's going to leave Washtenaw County. You can't stay in Washtenaw County and do this because they're going to find you, and it's going to be terrible for you. Whatever business you have is going to be 0 star, 1 star for the rest of your time. So I hope he enjoys living in a new county or state.
Moving to Columbus, get barred in Ohio.
Yeah.
I don't mean that. I'm just popular opinion wise.
Since the inception of it, I've been very consistent with how I feel, and I understand that it's getting to a serious point. But it's just kind of wild to me, the disconnect between some Michigan fans and what's happening, where they're willing to accept that the rule about sign stealing in 2023, it's a dumb rule because, again, as I've said multiple times, even the most ardent football fan of whatever, they know 80% of their team's plays. They know the packages, they know the audibles for the most part. Maybe they don't know what triggers the audibles, but they know what's going to happen when they see someone move around. And that's just the people who watch the sport every Saturday. Maybe they obsess during the week. That's not including the coaches who have film that they run over for 20 hours a day to get to the head coaches and positional coaches to work on counters against other teams' star players. So the actual teams probably know about 95% of the other teams' offenses and defense. So to have a problem with someone being at a game and watching your game unofficially or officially is kind of dumb. For that to be a rule to me is stupid. However, it is a rule, and no matter how stupid the rule is, like I said off air, if there's a rule where you can't eat chocolate chip cookies on Monday, all right, very dumb rule, but don't eat that cookie on Monday because then you'd be breaking said rule, and whatever happens as a result, that's the punishment. So to see so many fans be like, yeah, that rule is stupid. And yeah, we broke it, but we shouldn't be punished. That, come on. You broke a rule. And it's apparent you broke said rule. And even how stupid the rule is, it's a rule that should be broken. So the fact that people want to fight and they're like, why are we getting picked on? Why? Again, it is Michigan. If it was any other school, whatever was happening probably wouldn't be talked about as much. But the fact that it is Michigan, the fact that they are rolling the Big Ten for the second year in a row, some people are like, we need to focus on this because they're doing all this other stuff and punish them. And I think that's kind of childish. But again, they did break a rule and they should be punished for it if they broke a rule.
Well, Michigan fans will say that there hasn't been a full investigation, that we should wait until the NCAA comes down. And I understand that point as well, but I went through the materials from the Big Ten and I feel like there's another hammer coming I don't know when the NCAA kind of takes a slower roll to things and like the full investigation. I know there's a lot of stress because a lot of people want to win this title and see it as a major opportunity to do it. Off the record, a few Michigan fans have talked to me and been like, hey, this is our best shot at a title in a long time. And when you open up the playoffs to the 12 games, it's going to be harder. And this is the time to strike if you want a title. And so it's very, very important. Plus the justice part, feeling like they're getting railroaded by the Big Ten. And that has led to a number of, I'll label them extreme actions that are being pushed for by fans, by others. And I want to go through some of them and their plausibility with you, Fletcher, because you're more of like the sports guy. And there is so much to this with realignment, with the emotions involved, everything else, that people are pulling out all the stops. Heck, the state representative from Ann Arbor, Jason Morgan, said that he's joining a group of state legislators urging the Big Ten commissioner to refrain from action until a full investigation or better, the NCAA investigation is announced. I will say, if you read the documents, it feels like there has been an investigation, and I feel like maybe it was not communicated very well. I think that dropping it on a Friday was not a great move politically. I feel like you should have done a press conference instead of like a note while somebody's in the air. Like there are things about this that I don't like how it's being handled. But also, it feels like if what I read in there is true and the NCAA has more, I kind of feel like this is the lightest of possible punishments, but it's created a large amounts of reactions all the way to saying that Michigan should leave the Big Ten and go to the SEC.
Yeah, that's silly. A lot of the arguments I've seen from people saying why they should go, like, I understand on the football perspective, basketball, the SEC only has like one or two good teams. So I think that's actually a huge step down, but that's neither here nor there. We're talking about football.
Only thing anyone ever cares about anymore is football, to be honest with you.
Football-wise, I think it would be a smart move. It would be a harder move because instead of having to, play cupcakes like Northwestern or Iowa, who's ranked but has literally the nation's worst offense. That's honestly insane how you can be a top 25 team and have your offense be ranked dead last out of 200 Division I football teams, on par with like some D2 teams. And that's not a shot at D2 teams, but like they're a different caliber of athlete at each school. And you're playing against teams, like Auburn or Alabama, even Vanderbilt, which is not necessarily great, but they can give you a game if need be. It makes your schedule harder. And it's the reason why Alabama routinely, after losing one or two games, still makes the playoffs, because strength of schedule wise, they have a tougher schedule game in and game out, which it'd be great for that. It's iron sharpens iron. Like, you get your players against these really top tier players. Heck, you might even get some recruits who want to come to your school as a result, because they know they'll definitely be on the camera way more often, because your game will be more in the spotlight. However, you open yourself up to like not even making the playoffs as a result, because much harder conference, you need to win these games. And while Michigan has rolled the Big Ten the past 2 years and some change, they have not done that outside of the conference. Playing against Georgia or Alabama or even TC, it's ended poorly for them. I feel like maybe inviting that type of pressure is maybe not something you want to do. Also, hearing some of the fans with the rhetoric of this stuff used to happen in the SEC all the time, it sounds like you want to cheat out in the open and have no one bat an eye at it, which, if that's your rhetoric, like, that's strange, and you should keep that to yourself. And I'm only saying it because I've not just one person, I've seen multiple people say things like, this stuff used to fly down there all the time. They used to have each other's backs. Okay, that's weird. I don't think that should be a reason for leaving the conference. And me just being a traditionalist, I understand like conferences have been switching around and stuff, and the Pac-10 is basically no more, and like those schools are going other places, and how the Big 12 went from 12 teams to like 8, then to more, and the Big 10 is like currently at 14 teams.
Like, we're going to be at 16 soon enough. Once some legal stuff settles, we're getting Washington and Oregon.
It numerically doesn't make sense, but like I get it. But like Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, those battles are like the lifeblood of the Big Ten. And I feel like choosing to take your ball and go home because you got caught doing something that you should not have been doing.
You believe they did it?
I do, only because of how hard they're fighting to like pause everything. The rhetoric that I'm hearing and like the emotions I'm hearing from people surrounding around the program and around fans are like, we want to get this title. If it gets later taken away, it's okay because we won the, like, people aren't talking about like, this is a clean title, this is ours. People are like, we just want to win it, and if it gets taken away later, then we can say we still won it. Even half the fans think that they did it. They just want the title to say they have a title, to say that they watched it happen in their lifetime. If it gets taken away, it gets taken away. Just to say we had it for those 5 minutes, which to me is kooky. You might have pictures of you having it. The record books will never say you had it. That alone lets me think like, oh, they've done something they shouldn't have been doing.
I wish there was more investigation from the NCAA out there. I just don't get into these conspiracy theory things. I think the simplest answer is usually the right one. And that's not what people like to hear, but that's usually the truth. And the simplest answer is probably that somebody got caught. I think there should be radios in the helmets. This shouldn't have even been a scandal because we need to accept what college sports now is. Even the conversation around college sports, we're not talking about like building these people up on any of these teams as better men or whatever. This is all about winning. It's all about money. So if you're going to play that game, just accept it. Put radios in those helmets. Give them the wristbands they have now that can switch the whatever and treat it like real football. Because that's where we're at now.
They have those wristbands. Like, they have the play cards on their wrists to do stuff like that. There's been videos and like of players losing their cards on the field and some players being like, oh, I have this or whatever. That's why when I see stuff like that, I'm just kind of confused as to like why sign stealing. It's a rule. I'm not going to sit here and say like it should. I don't think it should be a rule necessarily at this day and age, but like it is a rule. Follow it. But the fact that so many people are okay breaking a rule because they hate it is strange to me. People are publicly saying, well, even if we did do this, whatever, this punishment's all right, man, fine.
My experience tells me that if the NCAA comes out with something, the reaction will be still met the same. And that's not just about Michigan fans. That's about people who are fans of anything. Like everyone's like, oh, wait for the NCAA thing. My money, 50-50, 60-40, would be on the fan base being like, well, the NCAA is out to screw us. I don't think that ends anything.
That's literally what's happening now. Like, even before, like, the NCAA's come out with some stuff, it's been like, oh, yeah, well, the Big Ten's out to get us, and it's conspiracy. NCAA has always had a thing again. Come on. Like, no. You're one of the winningest programs in the history of the organization.
You're a cash cow.
You really think that they would want to hamstring one of the most profitable teams in their entire organization? They know that if Michigan has a bowl game in like the side of a mountain in some weird Lithuanian town, they'll still somehow draw 20,000 people to come watch the game there because Michigan fans travel. That's something about most of the Big Ten. I'll say Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State. I'll leave it right there for those three for sure. But like if they have a game somewhere that's like anywhere in the continental U.S., and I'll even include Hawaii and Alaska because people will travel there too, they'll go. They will get people there, or they'll have people there already. It's kind of like Lions fans to a degree, where it's like, oh, where are you? You're playing in some weird little town in the bottom of Nebraska. Oh, hey, yeah, I'm from Michigan. I did this. Let's go. And like you look up there, and the state will be half maize and blue. Like it's something that's honestly amazing that I commend most sports fans from this region for, because when they want to go, they will go. So you really think the Big Ten, who understands how important Michigan is to them, and the NCAA understands how Michigan, you really think that they have like some vendetta against your program? Like seriously, conspiracy theories to me are sometimes strange. Sometimes there's a little bit of gravity there to hold, some sort of truth. This one I don't understand. I just think people are mad, and I think it's kind of like the Lions fans, the conspiracy, like the teams hate us, the refs hate us. I don't think that the refs are sitting there, of course, because they're winning.
And the Fords are the best owners ever. Like I'm not making that judgment myself. I'm just saying, like, I'm expressing that feeling that I've heard over the years and how those same people have changed their tune based on winning.
You're the few outliers who are like, oh, the Fords are not great, or the refs have all right, man, the refs have a thing against you and you still end up winning the game. Now what? Like what? Now what's your situation? So like I understand Michigan fans being frustrated because this is a year their team is doing really well. They have a chance on paper to be national champions.
Let's talk about that really quick, because that is one of the big feedback points that I've heard over the weekend from texts and whatever, is that this is our year and we're going to have the best chance to win that title this year with the strength of the team that it is and all that. And as a sports person, putting on your sports hat, how do you feel about that?
I'm someone who goes off of, I guess, what's happened in the past. So I don't think Michigan wins a national title, and it's not because of their efforts. I just don't see them beating an SEC team. I don't. Even with this team they have right now, I still don't see it because those teams are still coming back.
Do you not think that Ohio State's a big enough test? I mean, they still got to go through Ohio State.
They do, but I think Ryan Day is in his own head, Ohio State's head coach. He's had some powerful teams. They've talked about being super tough, and we've watched them get manhandled literally right after he talked about being tough. And the past 2 years have shown me that even when they have a chance to win the game, he will outthink himself and give Michigan a chance to come back, and then Michigan will come back. And I think, especially after last year, it's kind of broken. And that's like the weird thing about the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is like, you could go 2-for-9, but win against Ohio State as a Michigan coach 4 years in a row, still keep your job. You could go 10-1 and your one loss be Ohio State and you're on the hot seat. Like Ryan Day, like in Columbus, like people like him, but also if he loses to Michigan one more time, like he's going to find some for sale signs on his front lawn because people do not tolerate losing to the school up north, as they refer to them down there. I think he's really in his head. And I think while Ohio State is a very, very good team, it's different. We even saw last year, they beat Ohio State and then they went against TCU and found a way to lose. The year before, beat Ohio State, got manhandled by Georgia. So like, I get it that this is a good chance for them. They're ranked high. They have a better chance. The higher you rank, the lower ranking you play in the playoffs. I understand that, but until I see them beat a team out of the conference in a bowl game, I can't say that I have faith that they will do that. It's kind of like watching the Lions lose to the Packers over and over and over. And then it's like, they're going to beat the Packers this year. It's like, well, they haven't the last 4 years. And then they do it. And then they do it again. And they do it again. Now I have faith that they will beat the Packers. No matter what, I have faith they'll beat the Packers. I have faith now because I've seen it happen a few times. I have not seen them beat a team from the SEC, a good team from the SEC in some years. Until I see that, I personally, in my own heart, can't say that I see it happening.
You mentioned the Lions. Let's talk about them. A 41-38 high-scoring victory in Los Angeles. It felt like the defenses just didn't exist, and it was just like, well, who scores the most first, and you're in. But it's a victory, 7-2, the Detroit Lions. I mean, at this point of the schedule, I'm feeling very, very good. And there's now more people talking about, could they actually make it to the conference championship or even the Super Bowl?
Defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is like, they had something for them, and them being the Chargers. And boy, was he wrong, because 38 points shows that you had nothing prepared. And that's not to take away from the Chargers, because they have a really great quarterback in Justin Herbert. They have a really great all-pro receiver in Keenan Allen, who's been doing this for a while. He's kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown for them. He does everything. He goes deep. He goes across the middle. He's effectively a running back at receiver, and we saw that. He stiff-armed Jack Campbell to the ground, who's a linebacker. Even if he's a rookie, he's a linebacker. He's significantly bigger than Keenan, and Keenan put him into the ground like a tombstone. But the Lions showed resolve. If you'd asked me going into this game, if it was earlier in the year, would they pull out a victory? I would tell you no, because I have not seen them do this in the past. I've seen them get close to pulling out victories, find a way to lose, or find a way to give the game away, and the other team comes back to win. This time, after the Chargers scored a touchdown, I was thinking mentally, as long as they keep the ball and find a way to get down there in field goal position, they'll figure out a way to win this game. It was fourth down, thought they might, maybe kick a field goal, and I'm like, but also it's Dan Campbell, who at times just doesn't really have good sense. He goes for it, and they get it. And by saying he doesn't have good sense, I'm not trying to come down on him. Like, sometimes as a coach, you need a coach who's like, I'm going for it just because. I don't have a rhyme or reason. I'm going for it. And it works out because it puts pressure on the defense now because they're expecting one thing. You come out with another. They're expecting a few other things. It bit the Lions in the butt. It was 4th and 1. They expected a short run. The Chargers came out, scored a 38-yard touchdown pass from Herbert to Keenan Allen. And you come down, next possession, you get the 4th down conversion, run out the clock, kick a field goal to win. It was to the point to where I'm not saying their kicker, Riley Patterson, is like Jason Hanson, who is Mr. Consistent. When I saw him line up to kick, I'm like, unless someone gets a finger on this, he's not missing. The faith has been restored to a degree with watching the Lions. Like, I don't have a fear of like them kicking the ball off someone's face mask, it going into the air, bouncing back 60 yards, and someone picking it up and running it in for a touchdown for them to lose. It's almost in a way scary. Like, I've talked to a few friends of mine who are Lions fans and other people where it's like, it's really odd to be this calm late in games, knowing that they're going to find a way to win, considering we've all watched them find so many ways to lose, whether it's the Kelvin Johnson catch that wasn't a catch, whether it was a pass interference call that wasn't called, whether it was DeAndre Swift literally catching a ball, taking a step, and then literally throwing it out of his own hands for an incomplete. So many times over the past years, we've watched them have chances to win games and just not do it. So to see them now become this team that even like former professional players like Deshaun Jackson, who played for the Eagles, was like, the Lions are going to beat someone in the playoffs. I don't know who, but they're going to beat someone in the playoffs. Like, to see that be a thing is jarring for me because I've been so accustomed to them being one thing and they're not anymore. Now, honestly, I think the biggest jarring part for me is they're doing it with the run game. Before with Matthew Stafford, he's going to throw for 7 million yards in a game and just have to do that and somehow get like 30 rushing yards from people. But like, they had almost 200 rushing yards this last game from both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs went for 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery, while most of his were on one rush, 115 yards. They're chewing teams up. They're not just out there throwing the ball a bunch of times, hoping that you go. They're chewing teams up. They're also getting it done through the air as well. Their offensive line, which has been a liability for the past X amount of years, they faced a team that had 31 sacks coming into this game, which is a lot at this point of the season. Jared Goff didn't get touched till after he got rid of the ball. No sacks, maybe a few rushes, maybe a few hurries. That's an insane thing to think about, that we have a quarterback who's not necessarily mobile, who just didn't get touched against a team that has a fearsome pass defense. And what helps with that is offensive line getting better, but also having a solid run game that allows them to have to stay honest. They can't just crash it on your quarterback because the ball might go right by them. On the touchdown that David Montgomery had, it was supposed to be a pass play. The wrong personnel was in, and Jared Goff checked to a run. And David Montgomery did the rest. He ran in, cut to the outside, made 3 people miss, went down the sideline. And I'll mention this one point because I've said it week in and week out, and someone finally echoed my point, and I feel good about it. Jameson Williams was the reason why that touchdown happened. Yes, he's not been making the catches needed, although he had a few times during Sunday that were called back, unfortunately for him. 2 catches, about 20 yards, sure. But on that one run, he held his block, ran down the field, held his block again, and Montgomery was able to get in for the end zone. So for that, he could never catch a pass the rest of the season. I know I'm in the minority saying that, but as long as he keeps blocking and opening up holes for his running backs and other players to get where they need to get, that's what I love. We're working on making catches during the offseason and next year. Like, that's something that receivers can learn how to catch better. They cannot learn how to block. To block is a willingness. You have to want to hit somebody and get in their way. And Jameson is showing that whether he's catching the ball or not, he's putting his shoulder pad into your chest and moving you out of the way. That's the mark of a good team, is when all the players do their parts, whether they're the stars, whether they're the backups, whether they're whoever, they come and do their parts and keep the team moving forward. And to see the Lions actually have players who want to do their parts, it's odd, but it's great. And again, to your point, like, you don't hear anything about the Fords really anymore. You don't really hear about the referees ruining games because the Lions win. And like, people don't really care about that. You only dwell on that stuff when you're losing. And now that they're not the doormat, like, they can talk about other things. And just, I keep saying it's strange, and I hate to keep saying that word, but like,
I mean, you got to get over it. At some point, you got to grab that Kool-Aid, man.
It feels weird. Whether I have the Kool-Aid or not, it's never going to not feel weird. They could win 4 Super Bowls in a row. It's not going to be not strange to me, because this is the same team that I watched lose every game in a season. And this is the same team where, like, I watched Peyton Manning set a fantasy football record for points by a player in a game. Like, I've watched them at their lowest lows. So watching them go to like the higher parts of their highs is good, but it's still like waiting for the bottom to fall.
All right, with that, Fletcher, so good to talk to you, man.
Likewise.
Feedback as always, dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.